welcome to the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. I am your host, the whiteologist, Mr. Blows Your Minds, and this is Black MINDZ News Report. Black MINDZ News is to report, articulate, transmit, communicate, insinuate, develop, encode, deveil, spread the news was by news video website or quotes from publications. As I articulate this information, I ask that the creator of the universe be here, heart, soul, mind, and spirit. Because why? The truth don't need no partner. As a descendant of the greatest people who created this land that we call the United States, we, the B-A-D-O-S, Black American descendant of slaves, we, the today's children, offspring, and present generation, we give honor to our ancestors. You know what the motto of my show is? I'm never going to tell you what I heard. I'm only going to tell you what I know. Today's date is February 21st, 2020. Have you heard? Well, I got some stories that I want to relate that is in the news. I think they have some importance to us. And you know what we do on Black MINDZ News? We try to keep a reading, a pulse, a temperature of what is going on in the country that we live in that may have some effects upon us and the stories that need to be relayed. We got a story that's going to be talking about the U.S. population will decline faster. They said if they stop immigration, half of or stop it entirely. Check that story out. They said there's a rise in what they call domestic extremist groups in the land. There's one particular one they're talking about is called Boogaloo. Yeah, Boogaloo, right? All right, we'll get into that and talk about that and how they talk about this domestic terrorists. Got another story related to about how George Washington cheated his way to the top. That ain't anything new to us. So yeah, then I have another story talking about how when we participate in this country and how it ended up giving us one, they should be giving us other things. So stay tuned as we get into this broadcast. Hey, how's y'all doing, everybody? Again, this is your host, Mr. Blows Your Minds, and welcome to Black MINDZ News Report. Again, I'm your host, Mr. Blows Your Minds. First and foremost, I want to say what's good to the fam. Those who take time out of their busy schedules of their days to come and see what we talking about here on Black MINDZ News. To my old and new subscribers, what's good, everybody? Passerbys, if you happen to pass by and clicked on due to the thumbnail or the title, welcome to the most hated show in the black corner of the internet. Go down the aisle. We always got a grand opening over here. Go down the aisle, see something that you might like, happen to see something to make you feel some kind of way. Remember that the motto of the show is the truth don't need no partner. So, we're going to go ahead and get up into this story here, right? So, again, as I was talking about in this intro here, that again, since April 1st of 2014, I created a video called The White Extinction. Was not saying anything that in particular as we were going to do, but we were just talking again as the pulse, temperature, and reading of the country. The statistics were coming out talking about how the white population were going into a decline. So if we take that as a post, because I think I was the only one in the black corner of the internet who brought that information out, and that was 2014. We are now 6 years later, and a lot of the reports, I have been doing some updates recently, and there seemed to be a desperation. Again, we talked about other facets of ways that people are looking at trying to bring longevity, creating procreation, and so forth. And then I seen this story come up the other day in the Washington Post. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, see that right there? Again, talking about the United States population will decline faster without steady immigration, census report says. I'm going to say that again. United States population will decline faster without steady immigration, census report says. Now in this report here, again, it's talking about the limiting immigration over the next 4 decades due to, they say, well, this will do little to stop racial diversification. Now, you know they're always talking about diversification, and due to all the different groups that are now present in the United States, I think those who before now, when they were looking at this was kind of a deter not to deal with the BADOS of the land, and looked and sought that immigration would be a way to undermine, create a buffer, and from a labor, let's say, force that was, cheap. Because, somebody who's in the desert and need a drink, I don't think the water has to be clean. I think as long as it's wet, you'll drink, right? So if you're getting people from desperate situations, and what's been painted in most people's mind abroad, that this is the country where the streets are painted with gold. Well, they should be, based on the BADOS has created it, right? And so diversification, I've told for those who are avid watchers over here, that means changing of the guards. That means the status quo of white. Immigration was good for the pocket, but couldn't see the coming catastrophic decline in the reproduction of oneself. Immigration seemed good for, again, becoming opulent, being able to travel and buy and do, but could not see farsighted as the future. So recently, in the last 10 years or so or more, you've seen a lot of, from that on that side, complain about diversifying or diversification. And they say it is really a word that is saying to be non-white. And in one sense, I guess there's a lot of truth to that. And so what they've found in these reports that I'm going to go ahead and get into it with you about. And then they said the first time in 10 years, they said that the federal agencies, they gamed out, right? So what they did is gamed out, which is that they set it up in a way where it says varying degrees of immigration and how this could impact the United States. What they come to find out is that the growth age, the age, the racial diversity, and the labor force, right? So what they did is they try to separate and see how this is going to work. And so what they come up with is these so-called experts. Now what they say, this underscores the important roles immigrants play, they say, keeping population trending upward. So that's what they're saying. They're saying that immigration, the role that it has in this country is keeping population trending upward. Now, what good is having a trending population upward when majority of your citizenry might be struggling, either due to lack thereof, poor education, policies, discrimination? So those who have institutions and establishments that, again, creating their own businesses. If this is about capitalism and it's all about the bottom line and how one is going to pad in one's pocket, the best thing, I guess, to sort out is to figure out to get the cheapest labor I could get. So you wouldn't want to get those who've been in the game longest because you can't pay them pennies on a dollar or pennies on a quarter. Mm-hmm. And so because they've been in the game longer, they require more, and they're going to hold you to whatever the marquee of the country said. This is how the game played. And so what they felt like the best thing to do is to go around that. And immigration was their game. So keeping a trending population upward for immigrants is good for business as a labor force. But what happens when those new ones that you keep bringing get old here and start learning the game? Then you run into a wall because you can't pay them pennies when they know they should be getting quarters, and this one that know you're getting quarters, the other ones believe you should be getting dollars, and the other ones say, well, you're getting dollars, you should be getting more than $1. You get what I'm saying? And so they say, according to this article, they said that they were desperately need in immigration. Desperately need. Why are they desperately when you got plenty of people? You got BADOS just the other day. Mike Bloomberg was sitting there talking about how black men between the ages 19 to 26 or something like that, and how they can't get a job or maybe not qualify for the job or don't know how to act right on the plantation. Well, you have plenty in the force. I mean, but I guess free labor where you don't cost you nothing is better than trying to pay somebody in benefits and all the other stuff. So we're going to act like we don't have you know how they have in sports, they have baseball have a farming league, basketball will have like a D league or G league. Well, you have plenty to choose from. The problem is you're not willing to give what the marquee says. You want to undercut so that pads your pocket and make you live a more opulent, luxurious life. But sometimes they say you can run the tap until it gets to the bottom. Then you have a problem, right? But they say that they are desperately need immigration to keep the counting growth, this country with growing and being prosperous. So immigration is prosperous, but for whom? Growing, okay, numbers, and maybe the numbers have something to do with what happened again, from my understanding, what happened in 1933 when the birth certificate came. And then when you find out how that birth certificate and how they're able to get money when the child is born, that becomes, like collateral. Then I guess immigration and having babies is just a way to met out some more money. But I don't understand how it's beneficial when you have a farming system of many people that you could get that can fill those seats that way you need. The only difference is you can't get them for pennies. So they desperately seeking for new, cheap labor sources, really what they're saying. They said the reason why this country have a good growth rate in comparison to, let's say, other developed countries, or I guess when you say developed countries and undeveloped, is really between black and white, right? Let's just be honest about it. A developed nation would be those who colonized black nations, usurped all their resources, garnered it, packaged it, and then resell it back to you. And through those economics that you gained, you were able to build up your countries, right? So development, undeveloped is based on who was colonizing who. And so they say the reason why they have good growth rate is due to the simple fact that they call it robust immigration. Robust. Yeah, robust, right? They said they had a 30, 40 years in this country, robust immigration. Now here we is BADOS in this country. And as the last video that I did, where they talk about the diaspora wars, and those who would be in the family of we as Africans, who feel like we're divisive because we're talking about trying to get a claim when it was just them and us. And we see that this article that they bring out about population will decline faster without steady immigration, then that means if we're talking about immigration, before there was an immigrant, like I heard, like matter of fact, in that video that I did, that Steve Osusami talked about slickly trying to put us in the immigrant category when our ancestors arrived here. Wasn't no immigration because there wasn't no country yet. You understand? The country didn't become what it was until 1789. So if you say 1619 is going to be the stamp mark that we come in here, there was no country, so there was no immigration. So that means, so those been here since that period of time until the creation of 1789 of the United States, we're not considered immigrants in no form, shape, or fashion. But to say that is to put us in the same demarcation as immigrants. But by us being here originally, you got us for free, no pay, for hundreds of years. By the time they bring in the new immigrants, you're getting pennies. You're getting something. You're not getting nothing. So now the children and lineage and bloodline of those are saying, hey, we entitled to collect on what our ancestors didn't get, and based on because of our ancestors not getting, guess what? Look at the condition that we are in. And so people who come in now, how do you even get in the conversation and try to tell us what we're not supposed to be trying to get in the claim? Now, whether we get it or not is another, but that's between us and them. But understanding this article should let you know that you are used in a certain way. It would be like saying in a family. A family who has 15 children. Now, the oldest was there in the beginning. Then the baby being the 15th. The parents die, ain't gonna leave an inheritance. Most likely, people probably gonna give the majority of the inheritance to the youngest because let's say it's a baby. And it has to develop, get to an age where it can, manage its own affairs and be able to take care of itself. So would you say if I was to divvy up this inheritance, that the oldest don't get as much as the younger? Due to the simple fact, but you've been in the game, you're older now, and you should be able to take care of yourself. Does that have anything to do with the inheritance? Maybe the oldest should get more because the oldest done took care of all 14 going back beside himself, or he or she. So the divvy of that one should be a little bit more than everybody else. So in this case, do you understand how immigration is being used to not have to deal with the oldest? So keep replacing, putting a new child puts the original child further away getting closer to whatever it is to be gotten. That's the analogy I'm using. So they also goes on to talk about the census compared population estimates from 2011 to 2015. And what they did is they put a scenario to see the impact of the population as a whole. Now they said if they go along with the status quo, high immigration will increase by 50%. If they do low immigration, right, which is by declining immigration by 50%, then they talk about zero immigration, okay? Now, for those who may not know, because I don't think I did the story, did you know they had this, is it a bill? Or it's called public charge, right? And as of February 22nd, 2020, there's going to be a new implementation about certain nations who are not going to be allowed to come in with their visas. And I'll talk about that a little bit later as we go down, right? And so it goes on and it talks about that if immigration fluctuates from now into 2060, they said that there will be a difference between 127 million immigrants, right? So if you fluctuate that, so you start tinkering with the way that immigration is going right now, that it would fluctuate, and the end result by 2060 will be a sum total about 127 million. If they were to do decreases, as I said, to 50%, and they said it would only add about maybe 53 million. So if you allow it to continue to fluctuate the way it's going, it'll be 127 million by 2060. If you take 50% away from that, it'll be about 53 million over the next 4 decades, which is 40 years, right? That's what the reports say. But if they stop the immigration in its entirety, they claim that the population stalls out in 2035, okay? Then they said it will slide into a large portion of aging seniors, right? So, kind of saying that you need immigration because of the baby boomers getting older. A lot of them are collecting, right, pensions, Social Security, and so forth. That who's going to pay for that? Because accordingly, the baby boomers is pretty much outnumbering the children. Well, that's what they say, okay? And so they said if you do that, and then by 2060, they said this population could reach only 320 million. It's already 330 million right now, if not 340 million, right? So it wouldn't pretty much grow much more than what it is. It'll be down, but this would be after, we're talking about 2060. We're talking about 40 years from now. 40 years is a generation. It kind of depends. Generation could be 40, sometimes 30, could be 25. It just kind of depends, right? So if they do zero, they said by 2029, they said the seniors outpace the children. But if they keep it high, well, they could sustain that for about 2045. All right? Think about that. So it don't really fluctuate. Get about 16 more years. If they keep it the pace they're doing right now, instead of it being 2029, well, it'd take 2045. Now, a lot of those who are Generation X, based on what they done told Generation X, pretty much ain't gonna get no SSI. And you're already trying to figure out ways to pay for this pension, right? And so, right? So immigration, based on you went 30, 40 years and had the robust, and so many people ate off of it, and people who probably didn't even put money into the system. Let's think of it like this too. A lot of people who came here who were part of bringing a family here that might have been older. Let's say they were already 60 years old, 65 when they got here. They may have been getting, benefits, but hadn't put nothing into the system. So let's look at it that way too. Had there been a lot of people who came to this country prior to now and got a lot of the benefits that did not put nothing in, but you don't have none to replace, if you take and nobody's putting in, then those who put in but can't get out is because this is why you got to keep this immigration game going. And it's also has a couple other fold cuts to it. It's not just for that in itself. It's also done as into a talking about census, population, numbers, and so forth. Somebody needs to feel that when they report these numbers, that when the numbers are skewed to make it seem like you are in the tire more, you can sleep a little better at night. It's kind of like what they talk about the North and the South. They said that in the South, that BADOS outnumbered the whites in the South compared to that in the North. I looked at some of the stats and it said that there was about 21 million in the North and about 9 million in the South. Due to, they said the 21 million had to do because of the industrial revolution that took place. So going on with this article is also talking about that last month, President Donald Trump added about 6 countries to the travel ban list. They had Iran on there, they had Libya on there, Somalia, Syria, Yemen, North Korea, right? And as I was just telling you earlier about public charge, which is going to come in on February 22nd of 2020, which is going to be this new ban that's going to take effect. And it's going to bar immigrants from Nigeria, Eritrea, Myanmar, Kazakhstan, Tanzania, Sudan, okay? And so what's going to happen is a lot of those countries now that are coming from over in, let's say, the continent, I think they always had a lottery, right? But this new implementation is going to apply the visa lottery, which issues up to about 50,000 yearly, even with low migrations to the United States. So if that 50,000, a lot of them still are not going to be able to come in to the United States. Okay? And it looks like the people who are affected more with these new travel bans and this new policy seem to be all affected by Black and Muslim nations. Okay? Also goes on and talks about the census data reports. Eliminating all forms of immigration would prevent U.S. from becoming increasingly non-white. I'm going to say that again. The census data reports eliminating all forms of immigration couldn't prevent the U.S. from becoming increasingly non-white. So they believe that if somebody might be thinking that we need to stop all this immigration so that we can kind of subside that, and then they're trying to procreate to get them the white foundation and white base. But according to the report says, even if you stop immigration, you will not be able to prevent that from happening. Keep that in mind, right? Keep that in mind. So, according to also the report said the fastest growing racial group in this country who identify themselves. Now again, this is something we got to look at. Some people may think black and white, other people, right? Black and white. But they said there's a new racial group. A new racial group that, you know how you look at people and you'll say, well, you got black mama, white daddy, right? Black daddy, white mama. And a lot of times many of us, from a general understanding, go back to the understanding of the one drop of black blood, make you black. That's why so many people were out here thinking that Meghan Markle and feeling some kind of way and was praising and putting her in the black category. But you are the seed of your father, right? So you're the seed of your father. And so this group, based on maybe they believe not fitting in this group and not fitting in that group, been checking a box that we probably have not known, and only if you read this stuff you would know. This new racial group that they're talking about, that who identify themselves as multiracial. They're not checking the white box or the black box. They got a multiracial. We're mixed. Got a mixed box. And they are the fastest growing racial group in the United States right now. So now, look at this, BADOS. Not also is you fighting black and white. You're not also fighting within the African family, newly immigrants, or immigrants itself. You also fighting those who, again, have had mixed relations and breeding children who are now saying we are becoming our own group. Think about that one. So they say without new immigrants coming to the United States, non-Hispanic whites, which is just white people in general, so their numbers fall to 17% over the next 4 decades. They fall 17% because those new numbers is the one that keep upholding them and making them think, that making people believe that the number that they saying that they have. And maybe they don't, right? We don't really know all the data, right? But I read some reports where it was talking about a year or so ago, maybe 2016, how white people scour the map for places that they can dig out and make an all-white area. But you know, you always having people who think everything white is better. The ice is colder, the grass is greener, the air is sweeter, and they end up migrating in with them. And then they have to say, we gotta leave. We don't want you around us, right? Like every way they run, you keep following up behind them, like a puppy or something, right? And so they say by 2060, white people will only make up 51% of the nation. I don't even believe that, but that's what that report says. And so they say by 2041, they claim a majority minority. I don't know what that, okay, so 51% will make you a majority. So, you know, anything over 50. So it'll be 51% white, 49% everybody else. So there'd be a majority, minority. I don't understand what that means. I mean, either you majority, or you're going to be minority. And what is that majority? Holder? Owners? Right? And then 2045, you know, it depends. It can increase by 2045. Matter of fact, they're saying that this decrease in them, based on immigration, it can drop even faster before 2060. So really, they're using the immigration to pad their numbers, really, when you think about it. That's just really what they're saying. They pad their numbers, and it's got many different facets to it. It's not just padding the numbers. It's not just the cheap labor force. It's also the buffer zone. It's all, you know what I'm saying? It has a lot of many folk cuts, but the problem is, due to what they're going through, they want to have a pure, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of how black people say, your mama was black, your daddy was black, so when you procreate, don't you want something that reflects like you? Well, that's what white people saying. But because of the game and greed and not trying to deal with America's sin, Again, as I said, the creator is the greatest chess player there ever was. That was something you could not see. You could not see the foregone conclusion of the end of the game or the end game, like the chess. Some people can see 5, 6 moves. Some can see 12, 15 moves. This is the grandmaster of the grandmaster of the grandmaster of the grandmaster. And so you didn't see this, but this is just how it's going to come down to. And so that's what this report came out and talked about, this population and how they need to keep the immigration game going. But it's only going to be able to substantiate it for not a long period of time, right? So let me go ahead. Let me get into this next article, right? Let me go ahead and cue this up. We go and do this, and then we'll be right back after that, and we shall be right. We ready? You ready to do this? All right, let's do this, all right? You ready? All right, do it. Let's get it. All right, we're back. Sorry for the technical difficulties there. People falling asleep at the wheel there, right? So I got another story that I got for you here. Now again, you know how I do. I do themes over here, right? I got one thing sitting up there. We're going to connect the next thing to the next thing so you can get the picture, right? Get the picture. There is a picture to be laid here, right? So I seen this here because, election is here. Country is in a divide, race, immigrants, all kind of stuff happening, right? And based on what I just told you in the first segment about U.S. population and its need for immigrants, as well as BLAK having, again, we're not against anybody trying to survive. We just trying to claim what we're entitled to. Some people don't even believe we're entitled to that. I believe some people believe, well, it was legal. If it was lawful, then you have to obey the law, and that's just what it was. And that was so long ago, and none of us was here. But we're still here, and we're the beneficiary. We are the bloodlines to that. So in another sense, okay, as BLAK may have an issue with immigration, and one aspect that it affects us, but then there's another segment of people in the country who also feel that, and they've been raising their heads, even though many of you may not have heard. But again, as again being a watcher on the tower, sometimes I see these things and I say, well, let me go ahead and bring it because I see nobody in the corner touching it. So I've seen this article here, right? It said, what is the Boogaloo? How online calls for a violent uprising are hitting the mainstream. You know I'm going to say that again. What is the Boogaloo? How online calls for a violent uprising are hitting the mainstream, right? And that article had came out, and what it talked about in this article is that this Boogaloo is an anti-government movement. What they advocate for is violent uprisings targeting liberal political opponents, law enforcement, okay? So the internet to the mainstream, according to researchers tracing hate groups, right? They say they got researcher hate groups that monitor what they consider domestic terrorists, extremists. Yeah, remember they had BIE. We're trying to figure out really who that BIE is, right? Well, anyway. So they say this group wants a civil war. I'm going to say that again. They saying this group here wants a civil war, organized by the term, as you see, Boogaloo. Now, a lot of you will associate Boogaloo from what? Breaking. I mean, you might be about right about that too, right? Now, a lot of platforms that are, I guess, participants of this Boogaloo, they say they on Facebook, they on the Gram, they on Twitter, they on Reddit, they on 4chan. And they said this NCRI, which is the Network Contagion Research Institute, says that while calls for organized and target violence in the form of a new civil war have previously circulated some hate groups. Now, I don't know what they mean by some hate groups and previous. What do you mean by previous? Because I think once a group exists, do it ever go away? Now, sometimes, you know, it's kind of like businesses. There's some businesses that go bankrupt, right, due to, you know, whatever reason that might be, and then they reinvent themselves and come up with a different name. But it's still the same people, and but just the name change, right? So, it's, okay, so whatever you say. But we know they got the sauce open, right? Because, again, you done been watching, right? You've been watching BLAK the whole time. And BLAK is all here, there, and nowhere, but not really no threat. While you've been doing that, this over here been happening, right? And so now you want to bring it out, and again, Black Minds News called it, so we're going to bring it over here. And so Boogaloo appears to be a new discrete movement, they say, right? So it's discrete, right? You don't really know about it unless you are the type of individual that is over in those white corners of the internet, right? The white corner, like the black corner of the internet, they got the white corner of the internet. And so this NCRI, again, which is for the Network Contagion Research Institute, they analyzed, they say, about 100 million social media posts and comments. And the meme, right? There's a meme they got, right? Do we got that? Let me see if we got that meme. Do we got that meme? We might got that meme. Because they got like a little character that is associated with it. And so I guess if you should happen to see this, then you would probably know what this is. So I don't know. Do we got that image? I think people need to see that image. So you need to go ahead and, you know, get that image and put it up there for us, sir. And that way people will be familiar with it and can say they know what they seen that. I seen that on Mrblowsurmind News. Right, or Black Minds News, right? So as he's working to get that up for you, it says that, according to in this article, that that this meme that eventually we're going to show you, they considered it an inside joke in the form of the image, okay? And they said that this group have pushed for anti-government and, like, again, be it anti-law enforcement across social media platforms, anti-government, anti-law enforcement. Everybody trying to say that, you know, black people, like we were targeting, black people was not going out to target law enforcement because just to say we're going after you. I think it was just bringing the incidents that were happening so frequently that this is what was being reported. And because it became household known in many places that prior to, let's say the general media, where if you catch the 5, 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock news, you might, in this instance, most, you know, young ones, they out and about. But because of social media, they all have phones or access to it. And so they have certain individuals who they out here, who they look at. And so they kind of familiar when, depending on who is they listen to, they get certain type of information. And so when it was so much of an abundance of these stories being done, it became known. And so, you know, it became not like, you know, when somebody know, everybody know, it's like you can't hide it. So, you didn't get the image yet. What you waiting on, sir? Everybody waiting on to see this image you supposed to be having up on there. These kind of things, I know a little slow, right? I don't know what's going on. Oh, you got one. Okay, okay. We can do that one. We can do that one too. This one here would be, I think, the female version of it, right? I think it's the female version. All right, so let me. Okay, go back over there. Put that back over there. Okay. That one there, I think, is the female, right? Where it just got that on there, right? And then there's another one that is for the male. Now, I guess if you should happen to see somebody, a female with that, this is in reference to what they're talking about in that article. All right, yes, it's real slow, right? What's going on? Okay, yeah, it's going real slow, right? And so, going on with more of that while you're getting that together, it says that they talk about this group organized online communities with tens of thousands of members and assembled at real-world events, right? Kind of like you see what the ADOS group, FBA trying to put something together, right? So it could be they kind of use a similarity, but you don't hear these groups, our groups, talking about anti-government or, you know, anti-law enforcement, right? May address the issues dealing with government when it comes to, again, as one of the key phrases of the black groups is, or our groups, is reparations, which a lot of people could be offended by that. And when there's injustice that we believe, when we see the situations and story, that we'll talk about those. But nothing just straight out going at your neck. That's not what we're doing. So, but somebody tried to make us appear like that's the kind of advocacy that we're doing, and that would be the furthest thing from the truth. Okay, you found it? Okay, you found it. All right, good. There we go. So let's go ahead and put that up there. So here is for the MINDZ. I think it says the MINDZ group, right? Okay, so that's for the MINDZ there, right? So there you go. All right. You're a little slow about it, but it is there. It's all right. Okay? So that's the Boogaloo. They call it Boogaloo Boys, right? They online communities. They got tens of thousands of members. They assembled at places of world events. Said this report is a breakthrough, they say, in case study. Said the capacity to identify other swarms and viral insurgencies. while they develop in plain sight. So kind of like I've said, for those who've been watching over here, we talked about how the Black Corner basically talks about what we do openly. There's no hiding. Pretty much the way it is, ain't no privacy anyway, right? So we talk about our issues in plain sight too. But I guess the same thing with these organizations, they're doing the same thing. But again, like you say, 4chan and Reddit and so forth is where these people are congregating it. But they're talking about things that they say in these reports. They talking about straight out violence. Want a new civil war. Well, that's what they say, right? That's what they saying. And they said the former New Jersey Attorney General, I think his name was John Farmer. I think he's from the Miller Center for Community Protection and Resilience at Rutgers. He wrote in the report that he says that the U.S. law enforcement officials and researchers at various levels issue warnings about the growing threat by domestic extremists. Now, they said domestic extremists. Now, remember, they put BIE as extremists, but we don't know what BIE is. We don't know who. I'm pretty sure those in the Black Corner of the internet, we would be considered probably BIE, but we just report news, things that are happening. So maybe that might be considered that, but these people here are advocating for violence, right? And so goes on and talks about, they call it motivated by fringe ideologies. They call it fringe ideologies, conspiracy theories, right? So what they did is they brought the attention to Congress, the Department of Defense, the Homeland Security and Justice. They notified all them. And that this was a wake-up call, right? That they needed to take aware, and so what's been happening. They said that these reports have gone viral within the law enforcement and intelligence communities. They're all reading it. They distribute it to each one far and wide in this country, okay? And according to what they say, that this Boogaloo movement was first noticed in 2019, considered fringe groups from gun rights, the militia movement, to white supremacists, which they began referring to an impending civil war. Now, again, I go back, those who've been with me for some time, and when Obama came in, I did a video that I talked about, had something to do with the time that I think it was Pierce Morgan and, what's his name, they got rid of him, Alex Jones, right? And they were talking about guns, and he was talking about 1776, and if you try to take our guns, the 1776 would commence. Now those lemons, if they want to turn in now, when he's making a reference to lemons, he was making a reference to us. Because when you see gun turn-ins, have you ever seen white places where they do gun turn-ins? It seems like always in black communities, law-abiding citizens are turning the gun because you need to eat. You need an extra, get a bus pass. So you got this old gun that you say, well, let me go and turn it on and get this $50 or whatever they're going to give. But you got other people out here who seem to be getting together, and they got a plan that, according to this article, that the government is now saying that they had to take these words that they talking about seriously. Okay, they can't take them as a joke. Matter of fact, they quoted and saying when you have people talking about and planning sedition and violence against minorities. Now, see? Now, they made them seem like they're anti-government and anti-police, but when they quote and make this statement, they say when they have people talking about and planning seditions and violence against minorities, they do say police, they do say public officials, we need to take these words seriously, okay? So, again, it's viral amongst them. Again, if you're reading, you might know. So I just bring it for your attention. And again, as I said, this impending civil war using the word Boogaloo as a joking reference to Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo. You know, back in 1984. You remember you remember that, right? Okay. And so this term is supposed to be described as an uprising, right? So let's just look at it. What I just read to you originally about immigration, and I remember there's two folds to that. There's we, BADOS, and how we feel. Now we ain't totally against it, but we talking about in line priority. We trying to get, deal with this issue, right? And as I showed the other day when I talked about with Ann Coulter and how commandeered civil rights seem to be for everybody else. And matter of fact, there's articles I've been reading where they talking about that they believe that civil rights has opened the door for something they didn't want. Because now it done embodies so many other people instead of just dealing with the original people from the get-go. And so now they overburdened with it and they seem like everybody getting something but them. But we feel the same way. But you already done had something. We ain't got nothing. So based on the catastrophic, as they see it as, becoming a less white nation, having problem with procreation, meaning longevity of continuing of themselves. So in the crevice of these communities, online communities, they must be talking about how to resolve their issue, right? This is how they're looking at it. This, how we're going to have to resolve this. And so they seeing that they really talking, again, everything that you purchase now got some kind of receipt digitally. So they seeing all the stuff that you're doing. They seeing all, so, again, I wouldn't be news if I didn't bring it. Now, again, somebody might hear this and say, man, what does that got to do? Hey, I'm on the watchtower, right? While you doing what you doing, right? You out here and, living and playing and, right? Somebody got to be on the watchtower. Somebody has to be looking, right? So as Black Minds News, what we do is we try to sift through all the stuff that's out here and try to figure out what's going on, and we'll bring it to you here. So, okay, so we're going to go ahead and get into the next thing here. So are we ready to go ahead and go to the next thing? You ready, sir? Can we do this right this time? The last time it didn't come out too well. Let's get it. Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties over here. We should be getting that. You should be having that all cleared up for the next round, sir. We would deeply appreciate that. So, we got another story for you over here. Again, we're going on the theme here, right? We got to go on the theme here. So, we're going to talk about the U.S. population and immigration. Talked about how there seems to be a rising of what they call domestic home terrorists, or extremists, not terrorists, but extremists. And so I seen this story here. And, I'd say it like this, right? As those groups right there saying what they saying, right? But let's just go back to the beginning. Let's take it back to the beginning, since, immigration trying to find its place. The Boogaloo group is saying, hey, we're not going to take it. No, we're not going to take it, right? We're not going to take it anymore. And then I seen this story here, right? George Washington, a liar, cheated his way to the top according to new biography. You know I'm going to say that again. George Washington was a liar who cheated his way to the top, according to new biography. Now, you see that on your screen, coming out of the New York Post, was done February 15, 2020. And in this article, what it was talking about is how George Washington, again, I don't know how much today they teach about George Washington. I know the one thing that you knew about George Washington, then he chopped down the cherry tree and told his father, I could not tell a lie, father. I chopped down the tree, right? That's what they used to tell you, right? Father, I could not tell a lie. I chopped down the tree, right? And so we see that there's a new biography coming out that says it's going to tell the true of George Washington. And according to that, they said he was a liar. Now, again, I don't think a politician can't have that in his repertoire. He's going to win, right? Can a politician not be a liar? It's like being probably a defense lawyer or just a lawyer in itself. You got to have it as one of your tools, I guess, right? Like somebody come to your office and say, if he knows it's really your real lawyer, I guess you're going to tell him the real business. Like, I did this. Get me out of it. Right? So I guess you got to concoct something, right? So I say in this case, this is how my man, first president, but was he the first president? As we get into this, was he the first president? Okay, I got something in here for you later on, but then I went back later now as I keep telling y'all about getting these tangibles in these books, because I went back. Now they saying something entirely different, and they got more people added to it. But we'll talk about it as I get to that. So they talk about George Washington. The first thing they want to talk about is his teeth. They didn't know, because another thing they talk about besides, I could not tell a lie, chop down the cherry tree. He also had wooden teeth, right? But they said actually the teeth that George Washington had was made out of chunks of ivory from hippopotamus. Where you get a hippopotamus in the United States from? Where you gonna get a hippopotamus? Walrus? Walrus is in the United States. I ain't talking about the zoo. I'm talking about the natural inhabitants, right? Elephants? They got elephants in there? I know we can go to the zoo and see one, right? And he also, and they use the word diabolical, right? They said his diabolical source was from slave teeth, which is our ancestors. I'm going to say that again. Now, you was known that George Washington had wooden teeth, right? But you also must not know that his teeth was made out of chunks of ivory they was getting from hippopotamus, horses, and elephants. And I guess when the supply got low and he couldn't get that, he would go out there to his slaves, which is our ancestors, and get their teeth. Ain't that something? So I guess, in a sense, this here is kind of, you putting this in the same category as an animal, right? So if you're going to get hippopotamus or horse and elephant, well, you looked at black, we, as animals, right? Chattel slavery, like cattle, right? So look at that, right? Huh? But let's go on to this, because I'm going to tell you what this article talked about. They said at 11 years old, he inherited 10 slaves. Now, can you imagine that? You're 11 years old, you got 10 people who are under you, do whatever you want, how you want it, whatever you want. At the expense of even at their own life. Huh? So here he was, 11-year-old boy, he inherited 10 slaves. Now, look at that. 10 slaves, right? Always talking about 10, right? First 10 odd Negroes in 1619, right? And he got them from his father. They said, now, these slaves that he ended up having served him for about 56 years, right? And during this 56 years, this person who was writing this new biography named Alexis Cole, she said, now, again, that's why you have to be knowing history, having your tangibles, and know what they had originally wrote. Because, now people are revising the history, soft-soaping it so that it don't have the sting that it should, and also twisting. Remember the story that I did with a young brother that was at school and the teacher was saying in the sociology class, I think it was, and that the slaves that came here were workers, right? And went and told his mama just had to be a teacher and brought that whole thing to light, right? So he was sitting there trying to, revise the history to somebody who wouldn't question. Just happened to be somebody in there who, when you said slaves, perked up the ADOS, the BADOS, the FBA, the B1, and the blood was like, You talking about, Mike, we were workers. What are you talking about, right? So the same thing here. We see this Alexis Cole is going to say that she said, according to this article, that he paid his slaves for their teeth. I'm going to say that again. This Alexis Cole, who's writing this new biography on George Washington, said that he paid his slaves for their teeth at under market value, 2/3 less. Now, wait a minute. Our understanding of what our ancestors went through, and you say chattel slavery, if you read Harriet Washington's about medical apartheid, I remember reading the part in there, quote, where it talked about saying that it was cheaper to get Negroes than it was to get a cat, to do experiments. I'm going to say that again. Harriet Washington's medical apartheid was talking about how for women, they came up, the procedure that how they do with women, that how they got this medical association is because they were using our ancestors for medical purposes. And in her quote, what she said that they wrote, that is in that book, that it was cheaper to get slaves than to buy cats. Now, I don't know, is that true or not? But that's what she quoted as saying in that book. I wish I would have got the page number to tell it for exact and a fact. So anyway, you want us to believe that George Washington, who needed teeth, but he getting them from his slaves, he paid them. So let's put it this way. Okay, if I paid you 2/3 of nothing, old song, from nothing, leads to nothing, you got to have, you understand what I'm saying? Nothing from nothing, got to have something. So if I got 0, I'll give you 0, and 2/3 less of under the value of 0, it's still going to be 0. So I don't believe. Show me the receipts. Don't tell me about it. Show me it. Right, anyway, I guess I'm going to have to catch this on History Channel that's supposed to be coming on. And they say this probably airing, showing this biography, according to what they say. And according to what they say in the article, said he lied that he mistreated his slaves. He started a lie, and then the founding fathers were disappointed with him. And the so-called iconic fella, I cannot tell a lie, right? So during this whole ordeal, there was an account that she writes that the slave name was Isaac. Right? Isaac. Right? The other day when I was talking about Jacob and Esau, I was supposed to mention Isaac, right? I know. So Isaac was a slave, one of our ancestors, of George Washington. And according to what she said, that he was told to go and cut down a log, or cut a log, to somehow his specification to his likings. And when George Washington seen it, was not approving of it, he slapped him so hard, according to her account, that it discombobulated him, right? Isaac. And when he came to, he said George Washington was gone. Slapped him so hard because the specifications of the size he wanted was not right. So guess what that tells me? That tells me that our ancestors had to be precise. Our ancestors had to be exact. Because any, again, as it says, specification is not correct. Not being in line or correct the way they wanted it can cause you bodily injury. So once you became aware that, I think you did everything trying not to get yourself in that situation. So that means that our ancestors, again, as everybody always trying to make us like we not that smart, to still be here. We still here. Well, we will be here forever and ever and ever and ever. We will be here, right? And so, with that being said, he's also known that when he left, like he would go some other place and leave our ancestors to be there. According to what she says, that they would toil from sun up to sundown. That's what we get, can't see at morning to can't see at night, right? And 6 days a week. But they say we lazy. Oh, they don't want to work. Well, guess what? Ancestors for, you want to say 246 years? So if I got 246 years on the books of credit about working, I work, let's say, from can't see in the morning to can't see at night, 6 days a week, 7 days you let me go to church to be brainwashed, huh? And then here I am in the modern day, and then just the other day, I think Bloomberg was talking about again, it was talking about the 16 to 29, you can't work in, and, you know, right? Well, we got some, on the book somewhere, we got some account for not have to do no work. But I know what the Bible does. Man don't work, man can't eat. They say God said that. Man don't work, a man don't eat. Well, who, again, I didn't put it in. We already did the show, right? Slave Bible, the one that they concocted for. So again, did God say that? Did God say that? But the same book, the Creator says that, like the birds of the field, who do not worry about what they're going to eat, that everything has been provided for them, right? But this says, man don't work, a man don't eat. Seems like the motherfucker who trying to get you to work to make you never mind. You get what I'm saying? I think you get what I'm saying. So according, she says that George Washington could have freed the slaves. He could have freed our ancestors. But he didn't want to do that, right? Matter of fact, she got, accordingly, that he wrote to his relative and was quoted saying that the ideal might be too great a temptation for them to resist. I do not think they would be benefited by the change. Now, I'm going to say that again. George Washington could have had freed our ancestors, but this is what he wrote to his relative. The ideal might be too great a temptation for them to resist. So, having freedom in our mind is tempting for us to try to obtain it. He said, nah, I don't think this would be a benefit by the change. I don't think they would benefit from the change. But he might have been right about that in one sense. Because after you emancipated us, let them up go like, well, okay, you're free. Get the hell out of here. No place to go. No money in your pocket. Fend for your own. And from that day forward, some of us still struggle. So it looks like that, as all policies, according to what she writes, that there was this prize slaves that he had. When you think about it, been around for a while. There were certain names that associated that you knew that was black. That's black. Jefferson, right? Washington, right? What's another one? Harris, right? You would say when you hear those type of names, you'd be like, oh, they black. Not knowing that came from a white man, right? But somehow, because, again, he had his first 10 slaves when he was 11 years old. Went on for 56 more years after that. So how many slaves? I read in one particular book I read, they say he had so many slaves he could fill 2 states. I'm going to say that again. He had so many slaves he could fill 2 states. Anyway, moving on. So again, as you say, the policies as they wrote where he could have, but I guess they tried to free our ancestors at that time in 1700. And so, accordingly, what she wrote, this Alexis Cole, said that his prize slaves that he had, the ones that, kind of like the NFL, NBA, and everything else, they prize ones, he found a loophole in the law. And according to what they said, that if they stayed in the state 6 months, right, then they could be free. So what he would do is send them away to another state for 6 months and bring them back. So he kept fluctuating it so they would never get the 6 months. So that tells me something had been written at one time where our ancestors could have got let go. But the catch-22 was always there under discretion of the person who writing it. So how was you supposed to get out of that? You wasn't. So he would have them arranged, as I said, they would go transport them to Mount Vernon, 6 months to keep them as his property. They said about 1797, it said 2 slaves had escaped, right? And he had got adamant about it, and he said that they should return him, right, and bring back his slaves to him. One they could never find, and the other one was a female. And according to what Alexis Cole says, she says that the ancestor, she, said, well, get a word back to Massa that if I comes back, now again, my dramatization or reenactment is not to make fun. I'm just saying, right? If I comes back, Massa, you can't sell me. They said the word, she said the word apoplectic. He went crazy. What? What? He said any compromise is inadmissible. Want me to reward unfaithfulness. I'm going to say that again. Here's the mindset. You know that they had classified, when our ancestors ran away, they call it drapetomania, right? Drapetomania means there was something wrong with you psychologically that you didn't want to stay to be abused, raped, worked to death, everything else that went up, but whatever it was, you was something wrong with you mentally, drapetomania, that they classified when you ran away. Huh? So he says, what? She gonna sit here and try to make a compromise with me? That's inadmissible. There is none. For unfaithfulness? That's how he looked at it. He looked at that as unfaithfulness. What? You ran away from me. What are we gonna sit here and talk about? What is there to talk about, right? So, accordingly, she also writes that George Washington in his lifetime didn't free a slave in this life. He didn't, right? He never freed a slave, she said. But supposedly he's written as a principled man and not selling people, right? But they said that there was 3 occasions where he bought in the West Indies, right? He bought, right? Now this would be the Caribbeans, right? The islands, right? The West Indies, right? And accordingly, you know, they would bring white men to the Caribbeans to break their ass. Like if they did some shit they didn't like, they sent them to the Caribbeans, right? Because the arduous work that was in them sugar canes and them fields, you couldn't last that long. Because they in there working, again, as George Washington had from can't see in the morning to can't see at night. So that means that the sugar canes, without, again, that's what I'm saying. Those who from the islands, and then saying that you hear us try to put a claim in and then saying we're being divisive and then that we're not including you in that conversation. The only reason why, I mean, it seems to be honest and logical to me, is that which you endured did not originate from here. Now, if you can attach yourself to this right here, where George Washington go to the Caribbean and your ancestors was that person there, then you might got a claim. You get what I'm saying? You might got one. Because they said that it was a special kind of hell there. So that's not undermining to say that y'all didn't go through anything. But the problem is it's not here, right? You're just not here. So they also, like I said, they would bring them there, and I guess sometimes they would bring our ancestors over there because it would bring a brutal change in their lives, right? They say because the Caribbean slavery was, according to them, full of extraneous work. You got a bad diet. You probably was eating sugar cane. You probably didn't eat shit about sugar cane. Who knows, right? But we see that the food that the Caribbeans create, the little bit they did, well, ain't nothing like some good, you know what I'm saying? You get some of that, there's some good shit there, though. Even though it's kind of like the root to the tune, like we eating too, you know, pigtail and all that, but you know, motherfuckers know how to put the right spices and cook it better than some of the shit that they talking about. They call American cuisine, right? So anyway, and so goes on and it talks about that, you know, again, you can get a premature death fucking with over there. All right? They would bring you there. But just to say those who had been there for a period of time who survived, well, your ancestors were strong as shit. Because they could have, you know what I'm saying, what you inherit in your genes. Same thing with us here. Look what we inherit in our gene based on those who survived to this time. We still here, right? And so it goes on and talks more about the fact that the George Washington, as they write in history, they consider him a brilliant military strategist, right? But according to what she said he lost more than he won. But yet they call him a brilliant military strategist, right? He's also known, for those who may not have known, that he was the person that started what they considered the 7-Year War that was in Europe and the French Indian War. Did you know that? He was the one that created the global conflict. George Washington. Matter of fact, they were saying that he was too unlearned, too illiterate, unread for the station and reputation that y'all had gave him. It was kind of like how people talk about somebody today, right? Okay. And by the time he was 22 years old, he was a major in the Virginia militia. But that time he was fighting for the British Commonwealth at that time, right? So accordingly, he went to camp out at the Seneca tribe area. Now, suppose this was probably a diplomatic mission, they said, right? But somehow George Washington decided that this was a good opportunity for him to, start some shit. Michael Jackson, you want to be starting something, right? So what he did is he went and told one of the Seneca chief that the French had captured his father. They cooked him and ate him. And that the French was on their way to kill them. Now, according to this manipulation that he did, it had its desired effect. So when those French came over there, they got ambushed by the Seneca tribe based on the lie that he had told. And supposedly a note was found on one of the dead men, and it said that that's what had took place, according to what they say, right? That's what they say, right? And this diplomatic mission tactic to lead them to their demise. It was George Washington who set that whole shit up. And so, if it wasn't for him being put, they say, as being the first president and writing like that about him, he would have went down in history as the one who was the instigator of the First World War. You know what I'm saying? That's what she's saying, right? And so accordingly that in, I think it was in 90, well, they said something about his diary. Based on, I guess that's the way they kind of kept up with daily stuff. They wrote down, the itinerary in the kind of way, day for day, of the things they were doing. So they sequestered his diary, right? And the reason why I'm going to talk about that is because I had read a book. I read this book. Maybe y'all might have read this book. It's called The Luminoids by Neil Wilgus. The Luminoids, okay? And in that book, it's talking about, because I was reading this article and it talked about this diary that they took because they wanted to see what he had said, that implications of him writing in his diary about the shit that he did that caused this damn war. Now that war went all the way up into Europe, different nations, Russia, Austria, and all of them got into some shit based on the shit that took place here, right? But I read in this book, it's on page 32, if you happen to get it. And it's talking about George Washington's diary. And it says, strangely enough, that Washington's diary is missing from November 5th of 1781. And the reason why I want you to understand this, because it's something I want you to see, right? I want you to see this. Because they mentioned it in this article that when he went before, they wanted his diary to see what he had said. But it was another incident that had took place in American history that I want you to see here. You see this individual here? Y'all see that? Right? Now, both men in that picture there is John Hanson. I'm going to say that again. Both men you see in this portrait there, both men's name was John Hanson. Okay? Now, they tell us that, can I get him? They said that this individual here is the first U.S. black president, right? That individual right there, right? See that person right there? Huh? You see that, right? Okay. So, accordingly, if you read in the Luminoids, it talked about, strangely enough, Washington's diary is missing from November 5th of 1781, which was Hanson's election day, until the fall of 1784 when President Lee was in office. So the existence of this John Hanson seems to be mysteriously missing. But white folks tell you that the one to the right is the John Hanson that was in office, right? But if you go into the Luminoids, they talk about that this, in the same diary they're talking about in that article, that it came up missing November 5th of 1781, the day of Hanson's election, and then it starts again, which is about 3 years later, in 1784, when President Lee was in office. Okay? Now, according to Howard Rich, in an article in The Savior's World, summer of 1975, Hanson's correspondent for the period is also missing. So there is no record of that person that you see to the right of that black man. For some odd reason, it's missing. It don't exist for some odd reason, right? Let me tell you something else about that, right? They say that it's not surprising, since little was known of Hanson's personality has survived. But they said that Horton and Jensen, in fact, painted Hanson as a colorless man, right? Listen to the words. Listen to the words. Horton and Jensen, in fact, paint Hanson as a colorless man, about whom no story has survived, despite the fact that he was from an influential family and was a popular member of the Maryland State Assembly for 22 years. Hanson emerged from this year as president as a sick old man, and a year later, on November 22nd, 1783, he fell ill and died. Even his burying place is unknown. So, they want us to believe, because what they're going to tell you is that the black man that you see in your picture there is a man named John Hanson. But that John Hanson is the first president of Liberia. Right? That's what they're going to tell you. He was the first president of Liberia. But let me tell you something that seems to contradict that. January 3rd of 1848, Joseph, I think his name is Jenkins Roberts, is the first president of Liberia. I'm going to say that again. January 3rd of 1848, Joseph Jenkins Roberts is the first president of Liberia. Those going to talk about the Society for the Colonization of Free People of Color in America. They're going to say that the black man that you see on your screen, he was a part of that, and then that he ended up being, and then he went over to Liberia, right? But they said that this Society for Colonization of Free People of Color of America ended in 1919, but then, like I think in the 50s or 60s, they gave all their papers to was it not Congress? It was Congress, Library of Congress, right? And so they want you to believe that the black man that you see on your screen there, whose name is John Hanson, and before he passed, Dick Gregory told you John Hanson was the first black president. But then you had people who came out, and they always do that. When we start saying certain things, what they do is they go get their scholar people who in their pocket, who may be fraternized through some kind of organization, fraternity, or sorority, and they come out to contradict and they say all this other stuff, right? That there could be the very first black president in the United States. Right? That's your John Hanson. All right, okay. Matter of fact, I got another part to that. You ever heard of Paul Kufi? Paul Kufi. Now, I hear a lot of people who be immigrants, especially from Jamaica and stuff like that. And they love throwing Marcus Garvey in our face, right? I'm not here to say whether Marcus Garvey's work was not legitimate and what. I'm not saying that at all. I also know that Marcus Garvey was coming and dealing with Booker T. Washington. And Booker T. Washington said he was always down for the ADOS in the land. Now, again, there's going to be contradictions. Some people may not like what he was about. Some, you could always find pros and cons with everybody, right? So he was coming back, but, Booker T died before he got back, right? But 100 years before Marcus Garvey and talking about the Back to Africa, was an individual named Paul Kufi. ADOS. Or BADOS. He was the original idea to Back to Africa right here in the U.S. Doesn't take it away from Pan-Africanism. I'm just saying, is any of your ideas original? And if they are original, where they come from? That's all I'm saying. So, go ahead and get out to the last piece here on this thing that I'm saying for you, right? So, let's go ahead and, we ready to do this? We can go ahead and do this, right? So, you tell me, right? So that's just some information in that article there, right? We're going to tie it all together. You know how we're going to do it. Are we ready? Can we get it right this time? Goodness gracious, man. All right, go ahead and get it right. Let's get it ready. Hit it. All right, so we are back, right? So I think I got one more that I wanted to display here. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get it off. We're already about an hour and 38 minutes, 39 minutes. So I was going to play another one for you, but I may just go ahead. This has been long enough. And so we'll just call it like that. So, again, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming here today, clicking on the video. Hopefully you got some information on some things, learned something, and understand that Black Minds News is to bring the news, and we do the somewhat investigative part to it to try to make sure that there is some background to it. Once again, I want to thank everybody. We about ready to do that, sir? I think we could do it, right? Go ahead and get that. Go ahead and crank that up. We could do it? What you waiting on? All right. I think we good. Yeah, go ahead and do it. All right. So, is it ready? Let's get it. All right. All right. So, got the date up there? All right, there you go. Get it up there. All right. So, that one there's some information about immigration. Group called themselves Boogaloo in George Washington, right? All right, so you can like, dislike, comment, subscribe, share. You can even dislike. So once again, this is Black Minds News coming with another thought-provoking news report. And again, when you see your brother, greet your brother. What's good, brother? Greet your sister. What's good, sister? If you can't do that much, you can at least give the universal nod. Understand that we are in this together. We're going to have to learn to shake off this envy, jealousy, and strife, and understand that we is all we got. Understand that there's some people who are out here to seek for our demise. So we have to be vigilant, mindful, and loving and caring for one another. Till the next show, y'all, this is your host, Mr. Blows Your Minds, coming with another Black News Report. Till the next show, y'all, peace, love, and to the next show. To the next show.